The beautiful Audrey Strong with those gorgeous. Wait, she might be recording. Fuck it.
Huh? What?
No, nothing. I was flirting with you, and I remembered that we were on record, so I was like, okay, gotta nip that in the bud.
I don't have I took a shower and my hair is still a little wet. That's why I'm So, what are you going to start with her?
I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna start. I'm gonna let you start, but I'm thinking it's
I
like, yeah,
told you,
her.
oh, I told you you should start because you keep changing your mind.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's like clearly her bailiwick is, I love that word, uh, the remote first team.
Hmm.
So it's about unique challenges with management and leading a remote first team. And, I can touch on micromanagement. I know we're going to talk about communication. I know we're going to talk about culture building. I want to learn more about these social hubs that she's put together and everything like that. So, but,
Okay.
about cohesion of the team, making sure that the team, still is able to work and play well together. And, you know, because you can't do some of the things you normally do in an office, right? You can't have you don't have the birthday parties. Or it's
Mm.
like, I mean, I suppose you could do that remotely, but it's just not the same.
Well, go ahead and hit record. The uh
Okay.
the the uncomfortable conversation can be under that umbrella because I would think it's is it harder or easier to have an uncomfortable conversation when we're on Zoom?
Yeah,
Depends on the
exactly.
person. But some people are chicken shits that would rather do it on Zoom than you're standing right in front of me, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. I mean, even more chicken shit, they'd better do it by text and do it by Zoom.
Yeah.
So maybe that's
Hmm.
that's an area of conversation where it's like, okay, how do you handle things like, where an argument breaks out on text or on Slack or something like that? At what point does the manager have to step in and say, okay, this is really not a text conversation. This needs to be a face-to-face communication, wherever, and call for a
Hmm.
Zoom meeting.
Well, that should be, she says, world-class remote culture should include uncomfortable conversations. There, we've
Yeah,
solved
no,
our
I,
own
I agree.
problem.
Let's just roll that under the umbrella.
Yep.
And then on my sales cred or my cred talk questions, like, yeah, I have that. teed up. Where my question is, there are times when a salesperson has to give a client bad news and they absolutely dread it. What advice can you give them
Hmm.
about having that difficult conversation? So there we go. I'm only going to do one. I mean, unless something comes up during the show that I think is interesting from a sales perspective, I'm probably only going to do one cred talk this week.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of them in the can, which is great.
I've started re-entering as we record these in my drafts. Don't delete my drafts.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, lesson
So,
learned. Not happening again.
hey, like helps me remember everything. I don't have a microscopic memory like you.
Anyway, Paul's got that podcast still thing working really well, though. It's like I'm really happy with that. I hope you find it useful.
Yeah, I've only used it a couple times so far,
But the
but
extra point scripts are dynamite. The
I
Sell
haven't
Smarter
used any of
podcast
that
are
yet.
really good.
I had to produce 2 episodes ahead to get me through my fucking vacation. So,
On Manage Smarter.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's a month worth right there, isn't it?
yeah. But I
So
mean,
you'll
I
have
don't want
one.
to. I don't want to have to produce an episode while I'm on vacation.
No, hell no. How long are you on vacation?
A whole week,
Okay,
five
good.
days.
That's
Oh,
good.
yeah. We're mostly hanging out here, but we're going to go to Shreveport for 2 nights
Hmm.
Monday while you're in New York. You're going to be having so much fun at that event that you won't even think
I
about
don't know.
us.
We'll see.
I think it should be good. Might be good for affiliate lead gen, partnership lead gen.
Yeah, it might be. It really might be. I mean, I got a couple things now I got to do over the next couple days, and that's one of them.
And you fly on Sunday?
Saturday,
Oh,
I'm having
wow.
dinner with Trisha and Jeff Hazlett on Saturday night.
And so is he still being kind of used carish, phony, baloney with you, or is he offering anything of value?
Who?
Jeffrey Hazlett.
Uh,
Because, we think he's all hat, no cattle.
I mean, he made an interesting observation
Oh, yeah?
last time we talked, which was, made some comment about, about me I'm a people first, CEO and everything like that. And, uh, and I try to keep people, as long as possible. And I believe that, that, that they'll go the extra mile. And Jeffrey just kind of said, well, based on my observation, I'm not so certain that's true. It's like, and he was like asking some questions like, yeah, okay, yeah, the majority of people, come in and, they leave at 10 after 5 or 5:05. And it's
Hmm.
like,
Clock
they don't,
watchers. Hmm.
yeah, I mean, they don't work weekends and everything like that. And he was like, I mean, great. I don't have to browbeat them to do their work, but at the same point, I got Dave basically that's coasting to the finish line. I
Mm.
mean, so that was an interesting observation that he made, just not without having all the same data that I have. It was,
Yeah, but the people who are the long-term people, I can't believe I'm one of them now, are people that don't clock watch, that are your ride or dies.
yeah.
And so I don't know why he would think that that's a negative in any way, shape, or form. And they're all lifelong learners too. So it's
Yeah,
not
no,
like we're all
no,
dinosaurs.
I just think that he doesn't feel like, okay, I've got a team then that is, you know, I don't know why he thinks that,
Hmm.
but it could be things I've said to Trisha or, you
Right.
know, who knows?
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Marjorie.
Okay.
Hi,
Open
good
the door.
morning.
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm great. How
You
are
get a
you
working
doing?
headset. Yay.
Yay, so sorry about that, y'all. That was really unexpected.
No, no
Hey,
problem.
Audrey, who is Michelle?
And Andre, is that somebody with you, Marjorie, that's trying to get in the room here?
Michelle and Andre. No,
Michelle, Michelle and Andrew.
maybe it,
I don't know.
no.
I'm not going to let them in. So, because we
No,
need to record
goodbye.
this sucker and get it done.
Okay.
No, great to see you. And I was reminding
Outside.
Lee that you're in the most beautiful place on earth. So, I'm still jealous.
I am indeed.
We're ready for you because we show prep the last time. So we want to make valuable use of your time. If you're ready to do 20 minutes straight through, no stopping, post producing the music later. And then Lee, please call him Lee, has a
Okay.
little social media question and answer he wants to explain that we'll do after we wrap the initial.
Yeah, so
20.
the Manage Smarter podcast, of course, is for management and leadership. But then the Cred Talk that we're going to record afterward is used to promote this podcast. But the audience for that is different. It's salespeople. So I'm going to ask you a question about how salespeople should have difficult conversations with clients when it's necessary. But we'll save that. That's afterwards. One question, one answer, and post that separately, to promote the show, but also then to get you exposed to a different audience as well. So that's coming. But first is first.
Yep.
Yeah. We've gone back and forth, at least, no, I'm sorry, we haven't. I haven't, quite frankly, because there's so many cool things I want to talk to you about. But
I know. Tons of stuff.
yeah,
to talk to you about.
think, I know. I think we're gonna settle in on the managing and leading a remote first
Small
for a completely
culture.
remote team.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Super. Well, that's a topic on everyone's mind, and I do believe that we have figured it out to a pretty high degree. So
this person has tried to log in again. I wonder if they're going to keep dinging.
oh,
I'm going to hit remove. I don't know how they would have this room link unless they were.
Remove. Goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye. Whoever that is, if they're confused and they yell at me later, I will figure it out later. So,
Yes.
all right.
We'll
okay.
deal.
Well, I don't know who that person is, so I think we're okay.
We're good. So odd. Okay, I'm going to start the third backup recording, Marjorie, and I'll count us in.
So, but before we get started here, I just one question that's right up your alley, since you have to manage somebody that's in Taiwan, is to talk about managing time zones and work schedules. I'm going to come at it. I'm going to ask a question about mental health of remote employees. So that's something I'm going to ask later on. But let's just start with the basics, and then that's kind of what
We'll work our way to it.
Yeah,
mental health is great. Let me go back to the Taiwan. I don't manage someone in Taiwan.
No, we do. I do.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood that. Okay.
No, we do.
And the thing
is, and so one of the things we have to be aware of, quite frankly, is managing time zones for meetings and everything like that.
Absolutely.
And bringing them in
to
remote.
Over communicate with him. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring that into the conversation. But anyhow, go ahead, Audrey.
Right.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's get off to the races. Okay. Coming in 3, 2, 1. All right, we're post-COVID, and some of us are going back to the office, and some of us are hybrid, and some of us are fully back to the office, and some of us are still remote. But really, it's a new world, Lee, and sustaining a world-class remote culture is kind of what our guest today says is the way things seem to be going. She's an expert in this. Amazing. Can't wait to talk to her.
In the life cycle of our company at Salesforce, we started off as a completely remote organization. And we were that way for the first 10 years. Back before it was cool, we actually had to hide the fact that we were fully remote, and so we actually had to get an office address and everything like that so people wouldn't think that we were some fly-by-night. And then as we grew, we became, we all came into an office, and we've had some really cool office space over the years. And then COVID happened, and now we're going back the other direction where we are now mostly remote. So, and I don't know that life cycle is all that different from what other companies are experiencing. And there are some unique challenges in trying to build a cohesive team that works and plays well together, when most, if not all, the people are remote. So this is a great topic today.
It's a great topic. And we're so glad you're all here listening to the Manage Smarter podcast. My name is Audrey Strong. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And I'm C. Lee Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Sales Fuel.
And so Marjorie Hook, Vice President of People and Culture for Openly, is our guest today. And she is focused on the employee life cycle and sustaining a world-class remote culture. Prior to joining Openly in 2022, Marjorie spent more than 15 years leading people functions for both large tech and high growth tech startups. She's also got extensive consulting experience leading global organizations through business transformations. She's got a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, University of Texas alumni, lives in beautiful Frisco, Colorado with her partner, 2 dogs, tennis player, and obviously you must be a skier. Right.
I am a skier.
Colorado.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Well, welcome to the show, Marjorie. So where do we start? I mean, is it predominantly now more remote or is it going hybrid? Like we're in a snapshot in time right now in 2024 as we talk. What's the landscape look like?
So I think it's interesting. I mean, we enjoy a fully remote environment, and that was very intentional for Openly. But I do stay on top of what's happening in the industry, and there are a lot of companies that are finding success in the hybrid model now as well.
So I want to go back to what I led in with. So there are a lot of managers and leaders that have gotten used to having people into an office, and so they would manage by walking around and actually observing people and being able to go and stop in somebody's office and have a stand-up conversation with them and everything like that. And now they have to get used to this whole different way of management because they can't do that, physically, like they used to. So what advice would you have for managers or leaders now that have to make that transition and basically learn a new way of managing a new management style?
That's a great question, Lee. The first thing that you have to really double down on is connection. Really helping your employees get to know one another, feel comfortable having conversations, building trust. And so we focus very heavily on finding as many opportunities for our employees to connect and do that as possible. You also have to have a lot of information that is very clearly understood, foundational information like your company values and expectations for how people behave in the work environment, even if it's in a remote setting. Goals and priorities are incredibly clear because you can't just go to the person in the cube next door and ask what they're working on or how that ties to what you have going on. So you've got to really have clear goals. Everything has to be a little bit more explicit. I think having written records of what individuals are doing and what teams are doing, really important as well. Using collaboration tools so that you can have both asynchronous and synchronous work happening at the same time. So there are a lot of strategies that can make that very effective, but they have to be very intentional. It won't happen organically if you're moving into a remote environment for the first time.
It's funny you had mentioned something like Slack. We had a new employee come in many years ago, back when Slack was just getting started, wherever. She introduced us to Slack. And then she would go on and get in these arguments on Slack. And at what point does a manager have to step in? I mean, what are the signals to a manager that, okay, we need to end this text-based conversation. This is not a text-based conversation. This needs to be a voice-to-voice or person-to-person conversation, because we're either talking past each other or we're flaming each other or people are misreading what someone else, said, or they can't hear the tone because it's in text. So how does a manager navigate that?
Another great question. One of the things that we do that helps us is we have standards for how we use Slack, and we've given our employees training about the importance of tone. And I think most people in the Slack environment use a lot of emojis these days, and those don't always mean the same thing to different people. We've also had to set some standards around what kinds of things are appropriate for exchanges in Slack and when that doesn't actually work. So for instance, decision making, when it's any kind of a larger decision, Slack is not a good place for that to happen. That is better to, hop on a Zoom call, or if you happen to be in person together, that would be great. But smaller things, like just in terms of quick information gathering or information sharing or check-ins, those work really well in that environment. But you do really have to set the standards. And if a manager does see or hear about something that didn't come across as intended or had a negative unintended consequence, a conversation typically works. I mean, that's, usually when anything like that happens, it wasn't intended to cause any kind of a problem. And so usually just, take a step back, think about how that might have been perceived and what you could do differently
It
the
has to be a
next time.
private conversation, though. It can't be in front of an audience.
Oh, absolutely. A private conversation. Yes.
I have a question. So from a work
Yeah.
product, you talk about KPIs. Look, if somebody's not getting their work done, we'll know it because you're not delivering work product. But I
Right.
would like to know, for people who are skeptical about going all remote, what are like your top 3 red flags that somebody is, I'm not saying they're walking down the hall and playing Xbox when they should be in a meeting, but one of my things is, look, if you're in a Zoom meeting, have your camera on. I can't stand it when people are sitting there with their camera off. You don't seem engaged, but what are your top flags for people to look at? Like, maybe we need to talk about more guidelines.
Absolutely. So having your camera on is absolutely one, and we do that at Openly all of the time. Setting an expectation that when you do have an online meeting, a Zoom meeting, that people show up on time. We happen to be great about that. Some other things that you might see is we always provide our employees opportunities to ask questions, share ideas. Even at the end of a big all hands, we always allow time for that. You'll notice over time who's participating and who is not participating, or that might happen in a smaller meeting. If you've got some folks that are staying very quiet, that's a signal that people may not be as engaged as you'd like them to be.
Mm-hmm. Lee, do we want to talk about our employee Darby? So he works out of Taiwan.
Well, you should be. We have some unique challenges there by
Yes.
having it's one thing to have people in Columbus and
Dallas.
Denver at one point, Dallas and everything like that. Because but those time zones are only like, okay, you're behind an hour, you're behind 2 hours. Darby in Taiwan is a unique
12
situation,
hours.
right, Odd? Yeah.
Yeah. But Marjorie, it's interesting because I have him in the central time zone till about noon. For handoff and work product back and forth, and to talk to him and get him aligned before he goes off for his beauty sleep. But the beauty of it is when I hand him stuff at the end of my day, he's getting up and I have a 24-hour department. But what we do find sometimes is that we have to over communicate on task and deadline and things like that.
And when we schedule meetings too, we pretty much can only have a meeting in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we do the same, and we have employees across the entire United States. And so we have core working hours where there's overlap between all the time zones. We have a concentration of employees on the East Coast. So there's typically some work that starts earlier, but people tend to use the end caps of their day because of this, for work that you have to get done. And then that middle part of your day can be for the people that you need to connect with live.
Well, that makes sense. What about these social hubs? Lee and I were reading up.
Oh, yes.
Is that one of your tips? And how do I create one? And what is it?
Oh, yeah. So we call them culture hubs, and
Okay.
we're having great success with it so far. How do you do it? So we actually did an analysis of our employees. We have employees in 43 states. So we did an analysis of where they were relative to any of the bigger cities. We have a contract with a co-working space that has offices across the United States. And so we actually mapped out where those were relative to where the employees were living to try to figure out who had a reasonable commute into one of those co-working spaces. And so from there, we picked the 12 cities where that we had at least 6 people that could, with a reasonable commute, come in periodically. And we got volunteers for a champion for each one of those regions, each one of those offices, culture hubs, and then they have a budget. And what they're asked to do is find ways that culture, that microculture region wants to connect. And so you might have people that are coming in together on the day that we have an all hands, and then they're just going to work together in the office that day. Or just last week in Akron, Ohio, we had that local culture hub group get together and do an afternoon at a food bank, because we also really support our employees with paid service hours every year. And then once on the back end, once these events happen, then you want to share the photos and have people share the quotes, because there's so much intrinsic value that comes from that connection. And what I love most about it is it's typically a fairly random group of people who happen to live in that area. So it's not one function. It is not people of any certain level in the organization. It is just, whoever happens to live nearby, and you just create another level of connection and a sort of a secondary cultural identity. And our employees are loving that so far. It's been so much fun.
So I can
Wow.
totally see how
Yeah.
that works from the micro team, perspective. So how do you bring those micro teams? I mean, you mentioned photos
Yeah.
and sharing everything like that, but I mean, what else can you do as far as building a cohesive team across all of these regions? Because that's one of the things I think that a lot of managers and leaders are concerned about is like, it was so easy when we were in the office. We could have a happy hour. We would have monthly birthday parties. We would all get together and do a Halloween party or something like that. Whereas we can't really do that anymore.
We still do some of it. There are a lot of companies now that are offering online versions of that. So you can get folks together and do an online cooking class, or I think last year we made cake pops together
That
and
sounds like
kind
fun.
of, yes, different events
Sign
like
me
that
up.
where the materials are sent in advance and everyone is doing that online at the same time. I think that really works. We're also trying something else. We just started this year, and so far it's really working. Which is teams still get together for offsites. That's really important. It's a part of our connection model. So what we decided to do is this year we picked 4 locations, one each quarter. And we said, hey, listen, if you're going to have a team offsite, go to this city on this day. And when all the teams that are having the offsites go to that location, they get this organic connection opportunity together. So you may be in, conference room A working with your team or your function, but next to you is another team or function that you probably work with cross-functionally to some extent. And you get to eat lunch with them or do things with them in the evening. And that's worked really, really well for us. I think next year we're actually going to just move to 3 different cities. So we'll do one every 4 months. But that's been great. So just really very thoughtfully thinking about how do we get our folks together in person? How do we get folks together who don't often talk together to meet one another, develop trust, understand, how you're contributing to our overall strategy, and employees love that.
What I think I hear you saying is that the manager who flies it by the seat of their pants is going to be really challenged by managing a remote team because it seems like it requires a much higher level of organization, logistics, communication, and advanced thought.
That is very definitely true. And we make these decisions together as a company. So if you're a manager, even when you're coming in through onboarding, you're going to learn about the mechanisms that we have in that whole framework that we have for remote success. And then you'll be encouraged to do that.
And I'm guessing then too, when you hire a manager, whatever, you're looking for their ability to have concrete organization, and they have a certain level of strategic thinking and that they have to bring to the table, or else they're just not going to work there.
Oh, absolutely. And you have to find people who build relationships easily, and who have hopefully had success doing that in a virtual environment, because like anything else, takes a little bit more work. Every once in a while, you do need to reach out to a colleague and just say, hey, just checking in. How are you doing?
Yeah, I do that. I mean, if I haven't had an interaction with somebody in a different department for a while, I go, hey, how are you?
Right.
Long time no talk. One of the things we wanted to ask you when you talked about employees that aren't engaged or employees that are misbehaving is having uncomfortable conversations. Some managers might love the fact that they can do this over Zoom because they don't want to do it with the person sitting right in front of them with their eyeballs looking right into your eyeballs. What is the new way to do that effectively where the message gets through, and how is it different on Zoom versus when you're sitting right in front of me?
It's a great question. You have to be more observant, right? So you're not seeing as much of the nonverbal communication, and it is unfortunately, it's very easy for someone to smile through a 30-minute meeting when they're just dying inside. And when you're in person with someone, you can see that, but on a Zoom call, you can't necessarily do that. So you have to be a little bit more observant. I think, some of the tips for success there are, don't launch right into the difficult conversation. Spend a little time, just connecting. and then find a soft way to bring that up. Understand that, if you were having a conversation in person, sometimes people need to hear or participate in something and take a little time and go process. And if when you're in a Zoom environment, I feel like it makes people feel like, hey, this is a 30-minute meeting. I have to stay on this meeting for 30 minutes. But it's okay if you're having an uncomfortable conversation and just want to give someone time to process something and come back. That's more effective. So you really want to try to kind of replicate the space that people would have in an in-person setting in that Zoom call.
Are there specific instances when it absolutely has to be in person? Just, I'm asking for the audience, what's the guideline?
As a general rule, if you're having a difficult conversation and you can get together in person, great. I would not recommend that you do that if you're all at a conference, for instance, but if you can meet in, one of the co-working spaces, or if you are together for another reason, for another meeting, sometimes that can be really effective. But it doesn't always have to be that way. I mean, you do have to understand that if you're in a remote environment, sometimes you're going to have the difficult conversation on Zoom, and it's okay. You can still be effective. You just have to plan for it a little differently.
And you have to do it on Zoom. You can't be a chicken shit and do it by email or do it by text, because that just makes it worse.
You don't want to add those layers of complexity. Yeah,
and you really don't want the documentation either, right?
Gosh. Well, your website is openly.com. We've got a few minutes left. Lee, do you have a final question for Marjorie?
I do. It's like one of the things that that we learned during COVID is that, your better employees, actually work harder and they work longer, and all of a sudden they lose track of time, and all of a sudden now it's 7:00 and they look up and it's like, oh wow, I'm still working, because you don't see the cues of people packing up and leaving the office and like that, telling you it's time to leave. And so what I'm concerned about there, though, is the impact of, I'm not so much concerned about, but curious about, is, are we seeing higher levels of burnout because of more remote work? And what can managers do then to recognize the signs of depression or stress, anxiety, burnout, and everything like that, to really, really keep their finger on the pulse of the employee's mental health? And then what would you recommend them do about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And yes, you definitely see higher levels of burnout, I think, in a virtual environment. I've even heard that described as loneliness. Some of our employees, they start to feel lonely. And so once again, you have to look closely at someone's face, look into their eyes, look at their body language, listen to the words that they're saying. Do you hear the passion and excitement in their voice, or are they really, sounding tired? Look at their posture. I mean, those are all indications that someone is really struggling. And if there's any inkling that there is a mental health challenge, we use our business partners as good strategic partners to the business, so that when we even suspect something, we are prepared to provide resources or have conversations to help someone through that. Because if you're sitting in an office, or if you're sitting in your home office by yourself all day, and there's no one there to really check in with you in person, you want to give them the chance.
I talk to the dog and the cats all day. That's my
exactly. Well, yeah. Do you remember the one employee we had, Audrey, that would attend the meetings or whatever and be laying on the sofa?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a difficult conversation.
Totally laid out. Just, it's just all about my comfort. Not the content of this
I'm surprised he didn't have a martini in one hand.
Well, maybe he did. I don't know.
Right, you just didn't see it.
Marjorie, this has been great. And it's Marjorie Hook on your LinkedIn. And everybody, she spells her first name Marjorie. And openly.com is the website. I think we've done a fine job on Zoom with this. There's been no issues.
That's right. We all love each other.
Thanks for being on the show, Marjorie. We appreciate it.
Oh, really appreciate it. It was wonderful speaking with you, and have a fantastic day.
You too.
Thanks.
That's great. Oh, yeah, no, that person really, and the camera being off. Look, if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of a meeting, turn your camera off and disappear. Like, I know what that is.
Sure, absolutely.
Chronic introvert people who don't want to be on camera, that you have to have uncomfortable. conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
the person on the sofa would have been better off to have the camera off.
Yes,
It's like,
that person should have had the camera.
I can't tell whether you just don't care or whether you're that tired or whatever, because that's two different conversations right there. So, oh well.
All right. Okay, ready to do the extra point?
I am. Just give me a second here, and we will roll on that. Here we go. Coming in 3, 2, 1. Marjorie, yeah, there are times when a salesperson has to give a client bad news about, a shipment that didn't come in or something that didn't get delivered quite right or something like that, and they absolutely dread it. What advice can you give these salespeople about having a difficult conversation like that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to remind the salesperson that you're a partner. And so if bad news is coming to the business, the sooner they get that, the more time they have to prepare, for what they're going to do as an alternative. And so really it is having that conversation, having it quickly, having it very transparently, I think is important. I think, sales sometimes bears the brunt of an expectation where people think, oh, I'm not going to share the bad news. I want to make everything look new and shiny and perfect. But a true partner is going to tell you that something's not going to meet your expectations, at least temporarily, and they're going to come with a plan B. How are we going to mitigate that?
Yeah, and really delaying that conversation. Actually, just because you don't want to do it, you don't feel comfortable doing it or something like that, but that's the worst thing you can do. That just makes things so much worse.
Absolutely.
That's Marjorie Hook. She's the VP of People and Culture for Openly. Hear more from her on the Manage Smarter show at managesmarter.com, on Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And now there's a brand new platform for B2B salespeople that measures and builds their personal credibility with new prospects. It's called SalesCred Pro. Go check it out right now at salescred.com.
Yay, I'm so glad we got this done. When I saw my schedule today, I was like,
okay.
Marjorie's back.
Yeah, we did it.
Yay.
Yes, and these my brand new ones.
Looks good. Well, I'll be in
looking good.
touch. I produce the show with you
Okay.
and your folks and let you know when it comes out so we can cross promote and tag each other and do all that good stuff. So,
Oh, fantastic. Hey,
Oh,
this was
Marjorie,
really fun. Thanks, y'all.
Speaking of
Yay,
remote
good.
thing or whatever, this is something I do. So I'm on camera quite a bit doing other shows and everything like that. And I used to have, I used to do these things, the headphones like yours. I still do the giant microphone because of the sound and everything like that. But when I'm on camera, I don't want these big things on here. So what I have is I have these beats, and they're actually flesh colored. So they just slide right in here or whatever. And it's like if you look closely, you can see them. But if you're not looking, I just look normal.
You really do. Yeah, that's a better look.
I've got mine,
and they
and I
actually
need
come
to
in
sync
different
them up.
flesh tones. So they actually, if you're Hispanic or you're black or whatever, they've got different colors, that match that skin tone. So it's really kind of cool.
Oh,
Good
I
for
might check
on
those
camera.
out. They look good. Yeah, right.
Well, have a great rest of your day.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
You
don't
too.
be a stranger. Let us know if there's anything you need or anything we can do for you, and I'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Yep.
Thanks,
you too.
Marjorie.
Bye.
Thank you.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.